Welcome back to Mid-Maryland Votes. Tonight we sit down with Washington County Treasurer Matt Breeding, a retired Army officer and Maryland State Trooper who recently made headlines by declining an appointment to the Board of County Commissioners on principle. We're talking about integrity in public service, the importance of elected roles like treasurer, and the growing divisions within the conservative movement right here in Washington County. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I am your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very distinguished guest tonight. We have Matt Breeding of Washington County. Matt, welcome to the show. So, Matt, why don't you tell us and our viewers a little bit about yourself, what position you currently are in. You do work for the Washington County government, correct?
I do. Yeah, I'm the elected treasurer for Washington County, and Washington County is a little bit unusual. We're one of three Maryland counties that still elect their treasurer, Calvert County and St. Mary's included. And the other counties that's been converted to an appointed position, and I'm very fortunate. I think the voters and the citizens of Washington County are very fortunate that the position is still elected.
What's the benefit of it being an elected position as opposed to an appointed position?
That's a great question, and I didn't understand it initially, but I really believe it's because I serve as a check and balance. I can say things to my peers in the county, whether it be the county commissioners or anyone, generally without much concern of job security or anything else. I can act a little bit independently. And as a matter of fact, there's been a move on to try to change the position to appointed legislatively, and the delegates to the General Assembly have been very adamant with me. It's like, Matt, we're not going to change it. We are going to keep this elected position. and I'm grateful for that. One of the commissioners actually said to me, I don't know, 2 years ago, asked me if I was going to run again for treasurer. And at the time I told them no. And he said, good, if you're not going to, we would like to change this to appointed. But if you're going to run again, we're going to try to leave it the way it is. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. But I asked the question at the time, like, why do you want to change the position? He said to have more control, was the exact words. And that kind of stuck with me. And I'm all for more control, absolutely for more control. I think the voters should have more control and the bureaucracy shouldn't. And I remember reading something that whoever is the equivalent of like the chief judge of the Orphans Court for the state of Maryland, their organization. And it's a phrase that stuck with me, and that is, elected officials are bound to the voter. Appointed officials are bound to the government.
Hold on, that's an excellent point, man. Say that again, because that our viewers need to listen to that.
Elected officials are bound to the voters. Appointed officials are bound to the bureaucracy.
They belong to the throne.
There you go. And in fact, another commissioner asked me my opinion of why it should stay elected. I have a policy with my staff that every email that comes into our general email box that anybody can respond to, or to our general information number and they leave a voicemail, I'm the only one that responds to it. Unless I'm going to be out on I don't get vacation. But if I'm out of the office and going to be gone for an extended period of time, I defer that to my chief deputy. But when it comes directly from the citizens, the buck stops with me, and they get my personal phone call or my personal email. And in fact, I was chasing down, and without doing anything negative, but I was chasing down a couple bad checks is something I often do. When I got to the office, we had a stack of bad checks that had never been followed up with for reasons unknown. But I just took the time to go knock on doors and find the people, and we closed out the accounts.
Wow.
And it's the same thing I do on like a lot of delinquent accounts. When I had one last year with the city of Hagerstown, one property owner had 131 properties, and they were getting ready to go to tax sale. It's like, I can save you $165 per property if you can get this done by now, and that personal touch. Our collection rate is high, very high. And I think that makes a difference.
And Matt, what is it that the county treasurer does? What are your responsibilities?
That's a great question. And thank you for that. Essentially, we're a collection agency for the county. We collect all the real estate taxes, all the personal property taxes. We also collect utility bills on behalf of the other departments if they're coming in. Then we consolidate all of the money coming into the county, whether it's from Parks and Recreations, the Sheriff's Department, the Narcotics Task Force. And we consolidate, we are the one focal point to take in all of that money, track it, deposit, get it on account. And in the course of my 3.5 years, we've not lost a penny. And, you know, somewhere around $300 million a year.
And if it goes through and Washington County is transitioned to what the majority of the counties in Maryland are, where it is an appointed position, how do you think that the treasurer's office would change if that were to occur?
I can't envision what that would look like. The duties are pretty much stipulated in the Maryland tax property article of what the tax collector does. And, you know, it's very scripted. Well, you're on the Board of you're looking at going into the Board of Education. You know, and one of your predecessors told me one time, 85% of everything that moves through the Board of Education is pretty much templated by the State Board of Education. So much of this is templated all the way through. The manner of collections is a little bit different from county to county. In fact, my predecessor tried for years to actually get online that we would do something remote capture for the checks. And so to speed the money to get on deposit, you know, if we get the money on deposit by 4 o'clock that day, we start earning interest much earlier, as opposed to the way it was done for years is it would go to the bank the following day at 9 a.m. Well, when I did the calculations on how much money we were losing on interest, I asked my staff to make sure that deposit was ready every day by 2:30, and I got it to the bank by 4 o'clock. You know, and I saw, and I'm not going to tell you how much, but I saw the 1099 come through to the office of just what we made on interest, and it's significant, and it's 7 figures.
And that saves the taxpayers dollars, clearly, if you're making the interest as opposed to paying it out, right?
Absolutely.
Matt, you talked earlier about your relationship with the county council, the Washington County Council, and how important that is for the treasurer. How is that relationship for you as an elected official?
It started out wonderful. It's been a little tumultuous. It started out very great. I really don't want to go into a lot of details, but it's been a bit of a challenge, and I don't even know where to put the how to qualify it. But as I said, serve as a check and balance, and I'll give you one for instance, and this is one that's kind of bothered me a little bit. Tragically, we lost a circuit court judge several years ago, murdered in his driveway. Mm-hmm. And God bless our delegation for submitting legislation to amend the Fallen Heroes Act to include judicial officers in that. So April of last year, the bill was passed and signed into law. I believe it was April 24th. It was signed in early. And the widow got a hold of me, and she was aware of this. And it's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. So I started I looked at the county existing ordinance, and currently we have two widows in the county that benefited from this already credit. Now, unfortunately, 3. So I looked at what the ordinance was written and said, hey, county attorney's office and everybody, can we get this done? And if we can get this ordinance amended in time by the commissioners by May 30th, I can make sure this widow, when she gets her tax bill on July the 1st, shows 0. And that was my goal. And I kept pushing and pushing, like, can we get this done? Can we get this done? And the answer I got back was, well, we'll have to write an ordinance. We don't even have an ordinance for it. It's like, yeah, we do. And I sent up a copy of the ordinance that we had on file. And it was an unsigned copy. It was the original one. Oh, well, that's not even signed. Dug in the file and I found the newspaper article from 2009 in the Herald Mail where it was signed in by the commissioner and said, here, go. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. We missed the deadline to give her a 0 bill. All right, can we get this thing written, please? On July 23rd, in my living room at night, I took the existing ordinance, typed it up, made the changes on my own, sitting watching TV, emailed it to the county attorney. It's like, can we please get this signed? On August 26th, they did. It took that long. When the refund check, because she had to pay her taxes and she stayed in contact with me, When the refund check was issued on a Thursday, we can't release them on a Friday. I drove it to her house that Saturday morning. And it's like, some of these things just bother me that just go on and on and on, and the inefficiency of government. Government should move, in my opinion, at this level, more like the speed of business and not the speed of government.
Recent events in your life is that you are running for election for county commissioner. So in other words, putting your feet in those shoes yourself. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I think the expression is throw your hat in the ring. I don't know anything about feet. What is it about feet with you?
That's
I'm definitely going into this one head first.
Is throw your hat in the ring.
Hey, I've been distracted
right.
over the last day.
All right.
Thanks to you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
One of the things that you are doing is that you have submitted to be a candidate for county commissioner. In other words, putting your hat in the ring to deal with the very issues you just mentioned, as a matter of fact. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Mark, you're an Air Force veteran. You kind of get it. In the military, you're given a mission, you execute it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nathan, you were in the Navy. That was almost the military.
Almost. It was close. It was very close. He's almost there.
I think
It goes Boy Scouts, Coast Guard, Navy. I think that's how it goes.
Yeah. I was talking to a National Guardsman literally last week who ended up, Air Force, ended up in Iraq in the first Gulf War.
Mm-hmm. You must have got there right before the golf course was built. Because every Air Force base has a flight line so you can fly in to play golf. Which is also there.
But back to that, I could have easily ran for treasurer again, and I think I probably would have been fine. But I signed up to try a job that pays less than half of what I'm paying, or what I'm paid now. And I want to be as serious as I can about this. To get there and do the right thing, to look at people and serve the constituents. As I said, I answer all the personal phone calls and emails now, and I'll take the drive out. And, one of the few places I ask for an increase in, because I've decreased the treasurer's budget by outsourcing a lot of things, and I've cut the cost. The only place I asked for an increase in budget of any significance was vehicle mileage, because I only asked for, I think, $1,200 or $1,300 a month. Return on that's been big, but why did I want to do that? To be able to get in there and have a greater impact. And now sitting where I see so many efficiencies. In fact, Commissioner Wayne Kiefer said something to me when he was still a commissioner. And he actually came to see me and he said, Matt, it'd be really kind of neat if you would put a class on for the other directors in the county and show them how you've cut your budget and increased efficiencies. There's been so many things like outsourcing the bill printing. When I got there, we did something, we printed about 60,000 real estate bills a year. Now, it's kind of funny how we did it. We would contract with a company in Reisterstown, Maryland, to print the back side of the bill, bring them up here. We printed the front, the individual accounts, believe it or not, 60,000. They got folded and stuffed and taken to the post office here locally. But we printed the front. Our printers were roughly 20 years old. And you think about printing 60,000, and you had two printers, which are obsolete. And I was spending $2,800 a year on, not a year, just to print the toner for those bills. So the contract to print initially was about $11,000 for the back. The postage, all the man hours that went into that. And I found a company and I put it out on bid, and I was accused of violating the purchasing rules, but I did put it out on 3 bids. And now I'm doing it total for less than $7,000 a year. That's like, so we've cut that cost amazingly. I don't have to replace the printers anymore. And what I've done for the manpower for my people is so much easier. And I called my peers around the state. So through the month of December, I drove around before I took office and said, can I work with you guys for a couple of days? And I saw the way they did things. And they talked about the way some of the things were done in Washington County compared to other counties. For instance, one of them, Washington County, is one of 2 Maryland counties that does not bill for their municipalities. And I looked at it like, gee, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we make it better for our citizens to have to write one check that goes into our system? We're already paying for it in our software to divide up the money. We already have that in our system. Why wouldn't we make it easier that they mail one check or take advantage of the county's online bill pay systems that the towns necessarily wouldn't have, especially the smaller towns? Only one check to get lost in the mail and only one bill to get lost in the mail.
Right. One of my municipal friends said it's easier if you only rob them one time.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, if you're going to take the money from Joe Q Public, just do it one time. They'll get really, really angry when you try multiple times.
Ethan, you can appreciate this. Board of Education here in Washington County wanted to buy, I think, replace 12 vehicles. And some of the vehicles, I think, averaged 15 to 20 years old, but they had under 50,000 miles on them. But the reason for replacing was they were rusting out. I'll bet the Votech has a auto body shop. Wouldn't it be really great if those kids fixed those cars and they got that training and you did that public relations thing and you got the newspaper there? How great would that be and how much money would be saved? I'll give you, for instance, I had my office repainted, not the whole treasurer's office repainted. I went to our community service workers under the state's attorney's office and said, you got people coming in here burning up hours for something they did. Rather than use county maintenance personnel, I'll come in on a Saturday and I got it done for free. Didn't cost anybody a penny, and it looks nice.
Obviously, you have thrown your hat in the ring. You have a case for why you are amongst one of the top 5 candidates because there are 5 seats open. Of course, in the world of politics, things happen, and when in your particular case, as they say, the mudslinging has gotten fairly intense. Is there anything you want to talk to us about in regards to that?
Right up front, that was a heavy discussion in my household, and we knew that was going to happen. That was a calculated risk. It probably hasn't been worth it. Actually, it hasn't been worth it, but I'm in the fight. I knew that was coming. I fully expected an orchestrated attack. Knew it was going to happen. Can't really explain the why. Sometimes I'm a little bit vulnerable. Sometimes I say a little bit too much, a little too direct. I will say the allegations have been totally unsubstantiated, and I'll say something. That letter that went to the House of Delegates, I wasn't aware of that, although Delegate Weibel did tell me about a letter, and I'm not going to quote him, but he's basically was, we're not going to pay a lot of attention to it. And that was it. The allegation of pretty much everything has been refuted. Ken Buckler with the Radio Free Hub City did a public information request, as did I, to the towns. I had lunch with the mayor of Funkstown today. It's like, where did this come from? He said, I don't know. I don't know.
And the accusations, I would say there's probably like 3 categories of accusations. Now, the one that you mentioned is the letter. And just so viewers understand, is that the current county commissioners had written a letter, as you said, sent it to the state delegates there in Annapolis. And there were accusations from things that I would say include fairly minor to fairly severe. One of the things that is interesting is that the FOIA requests, the requests for information that, as you mentioned, one of the local reporting agencies, Radio Free Hub City, put in, has not produced anything, as far as I am aware, to substantiate the allegations that came from the existing sitting county commissioners. Okay, so it's unsubstantiated as of right now and may never be substantiated for literally everything in that letter. However, it is interesting that the county commissioners put their names to these allegations, because if they are completely false, are the county commissioners not opening themselves up either personally or governmentally to a lawsuit?
I can't speak to that. I'm not an attorney, and my attorney has asked me not to speak to that, but I have retained an attorney. I can say that that is being considered and discussed between my attorney and I.
A number of years ago, there you had a run-in that involved the law and going to court. It is a matter of record, regardless of what the accusations around it are, but that part is a matter of record. Do you want to speak to what those court issues were?
No, I'm not going to speak to the issues. I will speak to something that happened over 20 years ago when I was assigned to the Army Wounded Warrior Program at Walter Reed. And I was in pretty rough shape for a period of time. I spent 2 years in that program. That was during that. The court eventually did the right thing, and it was all completely expunged and returned to good life. And, I think you might know that I work for a federal agency, which I can't mention, but I still hold a security clearance with the federal government. Possess a LEOSA, Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act concealed carry permit. I do everything right, and I think it was Oscar Wilde says, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. I think this matter was properly litigated in 2022 when I ran for office the first time. There's no secrets then, and I scored almost 36,000 voters when I was elected. I got over 77% in the primary. I don't know, that he without sin cast the first stone.
If this fails, they're going to try to dig up some more stuff on you. So what's your plan to deal with this in the future?
Don't really have a plan. It's pretty much up to the lawyer. I think I'm just going to keep on, I know. I'm going to keep on getting up, going to work every day, doing the best job I can, go to sleep at night with a clear conscience, not because I have a bad memory, but knowing that I'm doing the best I can. I seek every day to learn a new task, to find a better way to find efficiency. And I'll give you one that I've thought, and I'll make this promise right now. I did it when I ran for treasurer. I will not take career benefits, including a pension. And I made that promise when I ran for treasurer, and I was told at the time, being an elected official, if you're elected, you don't have to sign up for the county pension plan. It's my belief no elected official should ever get one, ever. Congress didn't get one until 1947, and boy, we got career politicians now. And it was interesting because the way the policy was originally written, it was for all elected officials to have the ability to opt out of any career benefits. It saves about $25,000 a year per person. If you're doing this for the benefits and what you can get out of it, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Matt, it's kind of interesting you say that because we just had it recently. We had a guest come on. He's a very controversial guy in the Hagerstown area. But he basically said that 95% of local politicians are doing it for the wrong reasons. Now, what he really said was they're scumbags.
Okay, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so he's a very off the hook guy. It was John Porter. I mean, I'll give him a shout out. I mean, I believe that he serves a function, and I think that he's very earnest in what he does. But his point is that people who want to be in local office, a lot of them are on power trips, and a lot of them, the power is the drug for them, and what happens if you get between somebody and their drug. No.
He's an interesting character. I believe every community needs a Sean Porter to keep government honest. I hate his tactics. I despise his tactics. And, going after family members, I find despicable. But there's value in keeping the government honest. And that's not always the way it works, unfortunately. We see it at every level of government. Probably 90% of the time he has an allegation, he's usually right about something a good part of the way. His methodology and the way he approaches it, no, but he's got value.
Personally, I think that he serves a very valuable function. I don't particularly like the way he does his job, but I can understand the need for it, the use for it.
If you do win county commissioner and you do take the office, what would you be doing? What would you bring to the role that none of the other candidates would?
County experience. I know the county system now. I know the budget. I know the departments. I've served in other positions. I've served in the state government and federal government. And especially in the federal government, I've been everything from a battalion commander in the Army to a company commander to a program analyst assigned to the Department of Justice. I've managed major budgets. And I think we need to bring efficiency, bring back more efficiency. But I've wondered about the idea of why the county office building is at one of the most inconvenient places in the county to to the citizens. The real estate on Dole Highway, and I'm riding past the old Sheridan Four Points hotel that's been sitting vacant forever. It's like, and the free parking and the access to Route 70. It's like, have we looked at maybe acquiring something like that and getting all of our county offices that are spread out all over the building into one central county mall where we could better serve the citizens? Parking at my office is unreal. My citizens coming to my office have to pay to park, and going downtown's not all that pleasant anymore. The city of Hagerstown last year was nice enough during the month of July, and I asked them to designate 2 parking spots free for patrons of the treasurer's office. First time that was ever done, and I'm going to do that again. But we got to bring things back and make it focus on the citizens, instead of what's good for the government and the employees.
And you're right. Government should serve the citizens, not vice versa.
I was talking to someone at our local chamber of commerce, a local business owner, and we were talking about the difference just in how Maryland's public schools are just infinitely more expensive than so many other states, despite the fact that our academic performance is worse than most states at this point. And his response was, well, there's never enough money for an inefficient program.
That's true. Well, they always say in government, you never say you have too much work. Mm-hmm. You always respond back with, I don't have enough people. And that's the way the government grows. And, I've watched every department in the county every year. You can watch commission meetings, where they add position here and there. It's like, do we really need that? We went from a 6-month or a 6-week backlog typically to getting refunds out by using some of the old systems. Now we get them out the same week.
What is the timeline for this election coming up that you're involved in? And how can our viewers support you if they desire?
Well, I'm not, the primary is on June 23rd. So on June 24th, we'll know how it's going to go. It's a pretty crowded field. All I'm going to say is, if you like the job I've done, you can, evaluate these attacks that have come at me. And quite honestly, if there was any truth to it, I'd be in jail. It is what it is. And politics is just an ugly, dirty blood sport. I accept that. I've been through hell in my life a couple times, been to Iraq and Afghanistan. I can deal with a fight, but I'm here to serve. If you think I've done a decent job, give me a vote again. I'm not going to break your arm to vote for me. I'm not going to ask you for money. I didn't ask it last time. I self-funded, and it turned out all right.
Well, Matt Breeding, thank you so much for being a guest on Mid-Maryland Votes. We've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed seeing you both again.
Hey, this has been this episode of Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we thank our distinguished guest, Matt Breeding. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend. If you hated what you heard, share it with an enemy. We're equal opportunity entertainment. We'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.
That was Washington County Treasurer Matt Breeding, a man who chose principle over position and fairness over advantage. Whether you agree or disagree, his decision sparks a bigger conversation about integrity, leadership, and the direction of the local Republican community. Thanks for tuning in to Mid-Maryland Votes. Like, follow, and share for more content like this, and we'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.